Starting as a bar band is a great idea. Getting booked in bars is pretty easy to do. They're everywhere, bars are everywhere. A lot of times they want to have live music, so there's plenty of opportunities to get your band booked in there. It's also a great experience. It gets you in front of an audience that's already there. You don't have to do a whole lot of work for marketing and promotion. You just go play the venue. There's already a crowd there and you can entertain them, and hopefully you do a good job, and you learn a lot about putting on live performances by being in that environment. And these gigs happen regularly, so if you're good, they'll ask you back, and you can be getting more and more experience playing in front of an audience, getting your show tight, getting your band tight, getting your music tight. And those gigs actually pay money, and we'll talk about how much money they pay a little later on. So what kind of music should you play in a venue like that? Well, you have to remember that this is a bar, or it might be a bar/restaurant. The audience is already there. They're not necessarily your fans. This is not going and playing a concert where people are paying money to see you. No, they're actually there for the venue. They're probably there to hang out with their friends, have a few drinks, or maybe they're there for the food or just the ambiance. And they see all kinds of bands come through there. So it's not necessarily that you're the star per se. But of course, if you're really good, then you can become the star. But really, these are venue gigs where you're going to the venue to entertain the crowd that's already there. So you have to play music that they want to hear, and that means playing cover songs. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't play some of your original music, but really, you're going to be doing mostly cover songs. And you're going to want to play cover songs too. And that leads me on to item number 3, which is, how many songs do you need to play a gig like that? Well, we're talking about typically about 4 hours worth of music. On a Friday night, for example, it's very common for a band to start at 9:30 and be there until 1:30. That's 4 hours. Now, that doesn't mean you play 4 hours straight, continuously all the way through. The standard structure for something like that is 4 45-minute sets. 45 on, 15 off, and then so you're doing about 180 minutes worth of music. That works out to about 40 or so songs, depending on the length of the song, depending on how much talking you do in between songs. You don't want to talk too much between songs because then the audience gets bored. But coming up with that many original songs is going to be a challenge for most people. Also, the audience doesn't know your original songs. It doesn't mean they can't get to know your original songs, but the best way to do it is to introduce those songs into your set list with all the other cover songs. Cover songs work really well because the audience instantly recognizes it. Even if they don't know you, they don't know your band, they're not attached to you yet. They know the song, they love the song, and they want to hear your version of the song. And that doesn't mean that you have to sound exactly like the original artist that did that song. Do it your own way if you want to, and if it's good, if it's creative, then people will latch onto that. So like I said, your typical gig is going to be about 4 hours long, and that might be on a Friday or Saturday. For bands, the most common nights for playing gigs are Friday and Saturday nights. That's when there's the most audience there. That's when the bar or nightclub, whatever you want to call it, is really competing to try to get people to stay there and hang out all night long. They're not going to do that on a Monday night when they got to get up and go to work the next morning. They're not going to stay late. But on Friday, Saturday night, it's the weekend, people will stay late, and the bar wants to keep them there until closing time. They want to sell as much alcohol as possible. And that's something to keep in mind as well. The reason you're there is to sell alcohol for the bar. So like I said, the audience it's the venue's audience. Now later on, once you get playing, you might have a following of people come to see you specifically, but when you're first starting out, you don't have that following, so you're going to play to the audience that's already there. So you're going to play the music they want to hear, and the whole reason that the bar is hiring you is to sell what they sell there, which is alcohol mostly. That's how they make their money, and then that's how they can pay you. If having live music there didn't result in a better crowd and more alcohol sales, then they wouldn't bother to hire live music. So you just have to keep that in mind. Now, if that bothers your sensibilities, then maybe this is not the way to go for you. But if you want to play bars on a regular basis and get booked on a regular basis, that's what you're doing. And it's best to customize your show so that you're keeping the audience there and having a party with you, basically. And that doesn't mean you have to be, hyping up. You're not going to be a salesman on stage. Oh, buy this, buy that. That's not what I mean. But the point is, by being there and keeping the people there and having fun with you, they're also going to be spending money on the products that the place is selling there. And that's how you get paid as well. How much money can your band get paid doing this? Well, there is a standard kind of average pay range for local bands that play in bars. In Florida, I'm in the southeast here. It might be different in your part of the country where the cost of living is higher, maybe the numbers are different. But down here in the southeast, the standard for a gig is anywhere from $300 to $500 for the band. So let's just say $400. That's $400 for the whole band for playing your one night gig. It's not a lot of money. You're not going to get rich doing these kind of gigs, but it is money, and playing these kind of gigs is real experience for you. And it can grow over time. And I'll tell you in some of my other videos how you can make a whole lot more than just that $300 to $500 for your band. Now, keep in mind, this is a flat pay rate that you're getting from the venue. They're just paying you an agreed upon amount of, let's say, $300, $400, or $500, whatever it is that you work out with them. They're paying you directly. What you don't want to do is play for the door, where they charge a cover charge and then you get that money. No, don't ever do that, because you don't know how much money they actually made at the door. You're just trusting a bouncer to collect that money on your behalf. You have no idea how much money they're actually collecting for you. And you don't want to get into those kind of disputes. It's much easier to just set a flat rate and go with it that way. And that's pretty common anyway, especially for the typical bar. It's not until you get into bigger crowd scenarios where you might be having a cover charge involved with that. But even then, what I've found is it's better to just play at a flat rate and not bother with playing for the door. Having a tip jar there is optional. That may or may not be appropriate depending on what kind of a band you have, what kind of image you're trying to portray. But for the most part, playing in bars and having a tip jar, there's nothing wrong with that. And it can add a significant boost to that, $300 to $500 that you're making from the pay from the actual venue. There are some choices that you can make that will reduce your expenses for the band so that little bit of money goes further. And the main way is by having fewer members in the band. Rather than having a 7-piece band with a horn section and all that, by the time you divide up the money, there's not going to be very much for each person. Even a 5-piece band, to me, is a big band. If you can get away with a 3-piece band, that's really going to be the most efficient. That's about the smallest you can get and actually be considered a band, because you can have guitar, bass, and drums. Somebody's got to sing, or multiple people can sing. And if you're really good as a 3-piece band, obviously you're only dividing the money 3 ways instead of 5 ways for a 5-piece band. If having a lead singer and a cowbell player and a horn section and all that, that's going to the money's not going to go very far. And although it's one thing to say, oh, well, we just do it because we love playing the music, that's fine. But the reality is, when you're talking about ongoing gigs and playing on a regular basis, having money coming in makes a huge difference in your attitude about wanting to play those gigs and which gigs you're willing to play, and keeping the whole band together and enthused about playing those gigs. Now, even though a 3-piece band is the most efficient because you have the fewest number of members that you have to divide the money up with, having a really great lead singer can make a big difference, and it can be worth it to have that extra member in the band. And I mean not just a good singer, but a person that is a great entertainer for the crowd, that can really get the crowd energized and keep them there, keep them partying, keeping them having fun. Because then, if your audience grows because you have this person that can do that, then the band can make more money in the long run. And I'll do some other videos about how that works and how you can make a whole lot more money, and it can definitely be worth it to have that 4th member in the band. Having a great lead singer that is a great front person, a cheerleader for the band, that can make all the difference. So it might be worth it to do it if you want to make more money. And like I said, I'll talk about that in future videos. One of the other ways that you can save money is to do the mixing yourself from the stage. For your PA system, obviously you're going to have a mixing board, and somebody needs to operate that. You could hire a sound person that is going to handle that. Maybe they're going to have a soundboard out on the other side of the room. But I would recommend, if you can, don't do that. That's another person that you have to pay out of the little bit of money that you already have. Learn how to mix it yourself. Have the mixer on stage by you or someone else in the band that understands how to operate it, and get a good mix. And when you get there at the gigs, learn how to get a good sound check and get a good balance, and save those settings on the board. A lot of boards today are digital anyway, so you can just save that in memory. Once you get that set, then when you get to the next gig, the settings are already there, and then you just tweak it a little bit for that gig instead of having to start from scratch. So that's important to be able to just do all that from stage yourself, so that you don't have to pay another person to do that. So in theory, and what I've done a lot in my previous bands, is just have three people. There's only three people. You do it all from the stage. You manage it all yourself, and that's the only way that you have to divide up the money, is only three ways. Speaking of PA system, you're going to need a PA system for the whole band. Obviously, each member of the band is going to have their own stage gear. As a guitar player, I've got my guitar, my amp rig, and then the drummer's got his acoustic drum set, and then the bass player might have a bass amp, bass rig. You might, you might have a keyboard player too in the band. But the point is, each person has their stage gear, but that doesn't take care of the main PA. Where do the vocals go? You've got to have a PA system. Who owns that PA? Well, when you're first starting out, you pretty much are, whoever owns what, and you kind of put it all together to make it work. If your band has been together a while, maybe you have been making money, maybe you can sort of create a business out of it and buy a PA system together. That's one of the things that we did with one of my bands, as we had been together for a long time, and we formed a legal partnership business, and we actually bought a new PA system, under that structure. But when you're first starting out, that's really not what you do. It's usually, there's a couple of guys in the band that, oh, I own this, I own that, and let's put it all together and make it work. So typically what you're going to need, obviously you've got to have a mixing board. The number of channels is up to you, depends on how many instruments you have in the band. If you only have a 3-piece band, then really a 12-channel board is probably sufficient. And maybe I'll do another video another time for how to do mixing and all the details about that. But you got to have a mixer. You're going to have a PA system which has at least probably a 15-inch speaker and a horn in it. Really, you're probably going to want some subwoofers to go with that. It doesn't have to be huge, especially for most bars. They're not really huge. But you need to have enough power so that you can run the kick drum through it, and it's got a little bit of a thump to it. It doesn't have to be screaming loud. You don't want it to be screaming loud. And that takes me to my next point. You don't want to be too loud. I know it's common for a rock band especially, oh, you want to be rocking and be really loud, but that doesn't always work very well. There's a lot of problems when it starts to get really loud. First of all, you're driving a lot of the audience away. Second of all, the kind of audience that actually is going to stay there and spend money and grow for you over time is not the kind of person that listens to music really loud like that. They're there to have a good time. They're not there to get their ears shredded apart. Part of keeping a good sound for your overall band is to keep your stage volume low. That means keep your instruments on stage. Keep it down so that you can have more going through the PA system. It's one thing to, a lot of guitar players love to turn up that amp and they want to hear it, it's powerful and all that kind of thing. But really, in my experience, the best way to balance your sound on the stage is if you've got an acoustic drum set there, that should be the loudest thing on the stage, because you can't turn down drums. All you could do is maybe play a little bit lighter, but then that changes the feel of it, and you don't want to do that. But the drummer really should be the loudest thing on the stage. So then your guitar amp, for example, should be just loud enough so that it blends in with that and you can hear what you're doing right there. Same with the bass player. You just don't want the stage volume to be overwhelming, and that way you've got the PA system. Everything's going to be mic'd up anyway, and it's still going to come out through the PA. Use the PA system to really get the sound out front to the audience. The stage volume is just there for you to hear it while you're standing right next to it. It shouldn't be your main source for hearing your instrument. It should just be a little bit of a way to kind of monitor what you're playing. But yeah, keep this overall volume under control and well balanced, and do your best to get a good mix from the stage so that you don't have to hire a sound man. So those are my 10 tips for getting your band started. We'll be doing lots more videos on this subject. Comment below. I'd love to hear some of your feedback about some of these points that I brought up today. And of course, hit the subscribe button and the like and all the stuff that you usually do with YouTube videos, and we'll see you next time.